Hello, everyone. I will also talk about the autism spectrum disorder and peer bullying. Actually, Yasemin mentioned a lot of the reasons. A lot of kids, a lot of children have a tendency towards violence. There are some familial issues, but there's something lacking. Who do these children are? Who are these children violent against? There are bullies, and what are the target of bullies? Who are the targets of bullies? When we look at the neurodevelopmental disorders and the development, these children who have difficulty in terms of neurodevelopmental disorders, they are more likely to be the target of bullies. I chose ADHD and autism spectrum disorders and Tourette's syndrome for my presentation. Autism spectrum disorder, the prevalence of it is a little interesting. When I was an assistant, when my professors asked me, I would say autism may be 1 in 10,000, the prevalence. And I'm talking about 20 years ago. And my respects to all my professors. Then I became a specialist, and then this prevalence, the number, increased to 1 in 1,000. And then later on, there are two famous studies. One of them is Korean, and the other is an American study. They are saying 1 in 68 people, especially the autism spectrum disorder, OSD, is increasing in prevalence. And in the next centuries, I don't even remember the date, but it is expected or estimated that maybe if it goes this way, if it continues with this speed, with this at this pace, then every one child among two, no, 1 out of 2 children will be having an autism spectrum disorder. When we come to the bullying part, there is an intentional and repeated intention and will to hurt the other party. And this actually realizes itself, and then after this realizes itself, it repeats. There are many different kinds. It could be verbal, physical, between people. And in 2007, I believe Yasemin mentioned, in 2007 there was this research commission. And as a result of their studies, in terms of peer bullying, we are the second. We rank second after Lithuania. Cyberbullying is also another very important thing because it really affects children. For example, imagine a student is being bullied at school, but when he or she comes home, the bullying stops. But cyberbullying is not that way. For example, if you take an inappropriate picture of a child and put it on social media, they are actually bullied 24/7. And that bullying continues until the morning, until the next day. So all the time, 24/7, this child thinks about being bullied, how he or she is being bullied. There's a research, Orbius is a psychologist in Norway, and he studied children in Norway who committed suicide because of bullying, and then there was an awareness, increase in the awareness in Europe, and in some countries there are some programs that were developed under the name of Orbes. There are some tools where we can assess the bullying, and you can see CBCL, the checklist of child behavior, especially in module 3, there are some questions that evaluate the friendship between children, so you can actually find out if there's any bullying going on. When you look at the autistic spectrum disorder in young people, when you look at the A and B criteria, both criteria are actually making the children with autism a target of bullying. For example, it is known as a deficit. And when a bully actually chooses a child with autism as a target for bullying, the child with autism doesn't reply or doesn't do anything, doesn't react. So that actually encourages the bully to continue with their acts. A bully comes and the child with autism spectrum disorder, they cannot really show their aggression or their emotions, or they cannot really show the necessary reactions because they might have problems with perceiving what's happening or understanding what's happening. And this makes them a target for bullies. And it's even less of a probability of those children with autism to turn into bullies after being bullied. There are a lot of studies regarding this subject. It is very widely studied in the literature. You can see one of the studies is here. We have an average age of a mean age, 353 young people, and they were followed up on maybe 2 years or 5 years, some of them. And in the pathway to bullying, you can see what the factors are. Especially, there are 6 points here that I wanted to show you. Unfortunately, it doesn't really show well on the slides. Especially if you could look at the, I don't know if you could see it, but social problems are here in children with autism spectrum disorder. If they have social problems, it is more likely for them to be bullied. But I don't know, this doesn't really seem right on the presentation. I'm sorry, it doesn't show here. I cannot really show you the studies, the papers. This is a study from Turkey. It is actually a study comparing children with autism spectrum disorder and children with normal development tendencies. Of course, it shows that the children with autism spectrum disorder are more bullied. And as you know, it's a spectrum. As the children go towards the end of the spectrum, they are more likely to be bullied. And bullying is increasing all around the world. And 1 out of 3 children, according to studies, are being bullied. And when we look at the knowledge that we have, general knowledge that we have about these things, we think about abuse. And children with neurodevelopmental disorders, ADHD for example, this is the baseline. When there is a diversion from a baseline, you should definitely consider peer bullying. So what happens to these children? They are bullied, and then what happens? In the long term, let's see the long-term results of bullying. According to the age group, if you take a look at that, for example, let's take age group of 6 to 17 years. They have psychosomatic problems such as headaches and stomach aches, and they might go the onset age for smoking, drinking alcohol becomes less and less. Hallucinations and other psychosomatic indications are much higher in these children, in these people, and later on, anxiety disorders, depressions, psychotic experiences, lower social skills, and unemployment and familial problems, they all increase in these people who were a victim of bullying. And as you can see in the slide, in the autism spectrum disorder, in some studies, it is almost 100%. There are some studies that say 100%, all of the children who have autism spectrum disorder or ADHD, they are bullied. In OSD, when it's combined with ADHD, the probability of being bullied increases. Some pediatric psychiatrists' friends, they don't really take into consideration in a combined way the OSD and ADHD. With the DSM-5, the diagnosis of OSD changed because in the past, it was impossible to diagnose a child with OSD with ADHD, but now you can actually do it. As you can see, if you add ADHD to the autism spectrum disorder, so it is a comorbidity added, you increase the tendency or the probability of bullying. Some slides are not showing, some studies are not included, I'm sorry for that. There is the issue of suicidal tendencies. When you look at children with OSD, the comorbidities, psychiatric disorders are more, and when they are also bullied, of course, the risk of suicide increases. Let's say a child with, or children, or adolescents, or adults with OSD, suicide is actually one of the most common reasons of mortality. Their chances of suicide attempts are sixfold higher in young people with autism spectrum disorders. This could be interesting to you, but even children who are below the age of 6 might think about suicide when they have autism spectrum disorder. In more than 70% of the children with autism spectrum disorder, they probably have one or two other comorbidities, and children with OSD, they also have anxiety and depression because of these, and this actually could cause them to be more inclined to suicide. When you look at the ADHD, it is also, the prevalence is really high in that sense, and it is not just about school work or not paying attention in class. This is actually a condition that affects all of their lives and all their social lives. Responding to their bullies is another very important aspect, but they also become targets because they also, just like the children with OSD, they don't react or they don't say anything to their bullies. So these types of non-reaction makes them a target. And Tourette syndrome is another condition that I want to talk to you about, the peer bullying. And again, prevalence is around 5%, even in some studies. When a family comes to you with, Tourette syndrome, you tend to direct them towards psycho education. But the most important thing there should be protecting the child. Unless you protect the child, it's not okay to say it will probably go away, let's say with a chance of 94% when this child reaches the adolescence years. But it leaves some problems, it leaves some scars behind, so it's really important. Preventing this bullying on a personal level, individual level, or maybe on the level of associations or NGOs, this is, I believe, is impossible. This should be in the hands of the state. It should be the problem of the governments of the state. It is not as simple as you might think. Autism is a disorder and it's a disease. You have to communicate that. It's almost like they are saying that we should be aware that these children are different, these people are different. It's almost like saying that people will pray that their children have autism disorder, but it's not the case, so I think it should be handled at the state level.